With everything that's going on in our country right now, I know I have no reason to complain. I understand how privileged I am to be sheltering safely at home with my loved ones, getting up every morning to water my trees, even nagging my son to clean his bathroom. We are blessed. But sometimes I just feel sort of stressed out and overwhelmed. I keep thinking about those landlords putting people out into the streets during this record heat. The other night, it was 95 degrees. That's really bad because it's supposed to cool off at night so our bodies have a chance to recuperate. Even my desert plants are suffering. My prickly pear is getting all yellow and wrinkled, like the life force is being sucked out of it. And I can't even imagine how those people living in a wash survive. I guess some of them don't. I'm sorry. I'm afraid I'm experiencing what one article calls moral fatigue. See, I'm one of those people like Greta who really believe in climate change and that we should do everything we can to mitigate it so we can have a habitable planet. But it's just gotten so hard, especially for those of us who are trying to keep the single use plastic out of the landfills. The policies that the grocery stores put in place make it difficult for us to bring our reusable bags. And then there's all those takeout restaurants with their plastic bags and plastic straws and plastic silverware and hoarding toilet paper. What's that about? But there's hope too. All of this time sheltering in place gives us a chance to reflect on what's really important. The other day, I saw one of my neighbors plant a tree. And then when the food chain was disrupted, all these people rushed off to Home Depot and bought up all the gardening supplies, which has its own problems because all that gardening takes a lot of water. And then I worry about what if they don't know low water desert gardening methods? As some of you know, I've done other stories like the crazy weed lady and moringa disasters. So, I'm a little obsessive when it comes to this whole desert gardening and harvesting thing. I've been known to interrupt somebody crossing on the other side of the street to point out edible weed. The neighborhood dog walkers step it up when they pass my yard. I guess Jeremy gets it the worst. See, Jeremy has the privilege of sheltering in place with Dan and I. Let me tell you a little bit about him. Jeremy's a struggling stand up comedian. Before the coronavirus, he would perform at one or two open mics a night and then hang out with his comedian buddies. Then, when he would get home, he would stay up all night writing and then sleep most of the next day, which is all right, except for when does he do his chores? Sometimes our paths would cross in the morning on his way to bed, and I would nudge him about maybe you want to wash the counter? And he would respond, leave me alone. To be fair, Jeremy does do his own dishes and his own laundry, and he's not really a morning person. In fact, he's more of a recluse with a dark side that informs his comedy. Dan's dog, Poobut, yes, Poobut, kind of senses all this. So when Jeremy leaves his room, she goes crazy as if a robber just broke into the house. It's a wonder that Jeremy ever leaves his room. Then I worry about him becoming a hermit. To make matters worse, me and Jeremy really don't communicate. I guess I nag him until he storms off. Sometimes we're in the middle of a conversation and he'll just start doing a monologue to some other audience. Eventually, he'll dismiss me so he could go write it all down in his comedy notebook. I get it. He longed to perform. He couldn't wait for Dan and I to leave the house so he could put on a Broadway show tune and sing and dance to his heart's content. I used to do the same thing when I was his age, but this whole coronavirus has made that difficult. There was a time we used to leave the house nearly every day. Now we rarely leave the house at all. First, Dan's bike was stolen, and then we tried to ride the city bus and only took one ride with the guy. He gets right up into our face and spouts off about the COVID conspiracy. That took care of that. Now the only time we get out of the house for a break is to walk the dog. Thanks, Pooh Butt. I have even limited my trips to the store to once a week to avoid these careless shoppers. Sometimes I drag Jeremy along, and on the way out, I might point out how my moringas are doing. And he responds, I don't care. And then lectures me about how I don't care if he's interested. I remind him that it's my job as his mother to teach him. Actually, Jeremy's a good kid. He tries to help out. He opens the door as we carry the rinse water out to the hummingbird trumpets. That's kind of a pain too, carrying dishwater out. But it's so worth it because those hummingbird trumpets attract all kinds of pollinators. And we just love watching the hummingbirds buzzing around our prickly pear blooms. Once, Jeremy admitted that he likes to watch the wildlife outside of his window, too. I think he's more of a nature lover than he likes to let on. First of all, Jeremy's been a vegetarian since he was 7 years old, way before me and Dan. And then he goes hiking every weekend with his dad. Wait a minute. I wonder if getting up early for that hiking started to change his sleep habits. So now he's awake more during the day and he's less grouchy. Sometimes I like to watch him as he sings and dances around the living room. So now that our relationship's going better, I still worry about all of those people using too much water in their gardening. Is there anything that I can do? I mean, how can I write a blog when my own yard is looking crispy now that our shade tree, has been removed? And as much as I love all those little animals scurrying around the yard, they are wreaking havoc on our garden. Sensing my frustration, Jeremy said, doesn't it take a while to really get good at gardening? How long have you been doing it? Which inspired me to reach out to my Facebook peeps and to share their expertise in short videos and blogs. And you know, I finally got something to blog about too. Our prickly pear fruit ripened, so I did a colorful blog about Dan and I harvesting and preparing all that prickly pear fruit. And I didn't need to worry about Jeremy. He started, instead of becoming more reclusive, he started hanging out with me and Dan. He hangs out when we wash the dishes, and he says he enjoys our company, and we enjoy his. He even suggested a family storytelling night. After that first night, we hung out and told more stories. That was good for our communication skills. No nagging, no monologues. Did I mention that my son is a genius?